Welcome to Education Forum. I'm Herman Badillo, Chairman of the Board of Trustees of the City University. The improvement of education affects all New Yorkers. This program will focus on the key educational issues and challenges before us all. My guest today is Lewis Rudin, who is truly a New York City landmark. In fact, he has been designated as a living landmark by the New York Landmarks Conservancy. He also has received the Bronx Medallion, the New York City's highest civic award, and many other awards. And the reason for that is that he and his family belong to a tradition of being builders and philanthropists who have helped New York City and who now manage 22 residential and 14 commercial buildings. Lou Rudin is now agreed to become chairman of a business leadership council which I have established at the City University. And we'll be talking about that, but his contribution over the years goes back to the time that he founded ABNY, the Association for a Better New York. And I guess the highlight of what you've done for New York City came during the New York City fiscal crisis in the 70s, when I was in Congress and New York City faced the fact that it needed desperately to get some assistance for the federal government. Tell us from the inside how that looked to you.
Well, Herman, in 1970, the reason we formed the association was that the corporate exodus was escalating and major companies and people were moving out of the city. By 74, 75, some 750,000 people moved out. That's jobs, and I don't know how many corporations moved up to Connecticut, and New Jersey, and Texas, and God knows where, Washington. And we as real estate people initially recognized that if the buildings are going to empty out, the tax rolls are going to diminish, and the city is going to have a fiscal crisis. Now
Which it did.
Which it did. It took 4 years to surface, but by 1974, when Abe Beame became the mayor, they couldn't borrow any money. The banks wouldn't lend the city any money. The state wouldn't lend the city any money, and the federal government wouldn't lend the city any money. And in May '75, Mayor Beame got this famous letter from Bill Simon, directed by President Ford, and it said, "We can't lend you money until you reshape up your house." And that was the headline. It was interpreted in the Daily News as "Ford to New York, drop dead."
Mm-hmm. Right.
And it happened that night I was having a party for my mother, and Abe Beame and Mrs. Beame came, and the poor guy was just absolutely disheveled. And it was out of that meeting and the next morning at City Hall and a series of meetings that we came up with a plan to prepay real estate taxes for the city, so that on June the 6th of 1975, the city could meet a payroll. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it couldn't have met the payroll. And also by that time, Governor Carey had set up the Emergency Control Board and the Municipal Assistance Corporation, and they didn't really go into effect till July or August of '75. We did the prepayment of real estate taxes 2 more times, in September and in November. And by November, we had organized groups to go down to Washington to lobby the Congress, and you were in the Congress
Mm-hmm.
at that time, to lobby the Congress, the Banking Committee, to pass an interim loan agreement to give the city, in other words, the federal government would be the city's banker, to, I think the tune was $2 billion. And President Ford then signed that bill in December of '75, and then things, through Municipal Assistance Corporation, through the Emergency Control Board, things started to change, so that by July of 1976, there was a wonderful change in the city, and then it was reflected by Upsale, the wonderful 4th of July celebration of the country's 200th birthday. And then a week later, the Queen of England came to New York and walked into Bloomingdale's and walked on Wall Street, and the headlines were, Queen walks on Wall Street. Well, to the rest of the world, the rest of the country, you were afraid to walk in New York City. So that changed the perception. Then the Democratic Convention took place then, Herman, if you remember.
Yes, of course.
And after that was over, Carter was nominated, and Jimmy and the Texas delegation sang, "We love New York." And then the fourth leg of what I think were the four items that changed the perception of what New York was about was the New York City Marathon, which we
yes, you were one of the founders.
We were the founder
and
of it.
You still sponsor the New York City Marathon.
We had 1,800 runners that year, and now we have 32,000 runners.
And
I know you ran in it.
I finished 11 New York City marathons.
That's right.
Yeah.
So we were that year was a very important year, 75, 76. And we established, I think, credibility, and we changed the perception of the city. The fact of the matter is that when Ed Koch became mayor, he also asked us to, in 1978, to prepay real estate taxes because there was a problem in borrowing. And then, of course, we've done so many other things, but one of the most important things that I'm proudest of, Herman, is in '87 we started the New York is a Great College Town program.
Yes, yes. Let's talk about that because you and your family have a long-standing commitment to colleges and to the City University, because your father is a graduate of City College, and your brother is a graduate of City College.
Right. My dad went to Townsend Harris High School and graduated at City College in 1918. And as the son of, he was born in New York, but as the son of an immigrant, he'd have never been able to get a college education if it wasn't for the City College and the City University system that was formed after that.
Yeah, right.
And so even though I went to NYU, I always tell the story with General Powell, who was very proud to be a City College graduate, and he said when he went to apply, he wanted to go to NYU, but they couldn't afford it, so he went to City College. And I say, well, I wanted to go to City College, but I couldn't pass the test, so I went to NYU.
Well, that's what Mayor Wagner used to say, that he went to his father, who was a graduate, Senator Wagner, graduate of City College, and he told him that he'd been accepted to Yale, and his father said, good, because you never would have made it at City College.
That's right. So anyway, I went back in the Army in '45, and I came out and I finished at NYU. But we always felt, Dad always felt, and Jack and I always felt that it was so important to support these institutions.
Now, tell me then about the college town concept. What is that and how does it work?
Well, what we did was we said, you know, there's so many great assets in the city, and very few people know about it. And ABNY had 2-point directions. One was to help the mayors, whoever the mayor was, to make the city work better. And the second direction was to talk up the city, to provide a booster organization and provide opportunities for people throughout the country to know what are the great institutions, what are the great assets of New York City. And we came up with this, we researched and found that at that time there were 87 colleges and universities in the 5 boroughs of the city. That's unbelievable. Sure. Now there's 95, and it handles 500,000 students, and it's a $20 billion economic stimulator. Well, it's private institutions and it's city university, and we've been supporters of both city universities and the private institutions in the tune of very, very many millions of dollars. I calculated it, my office calculated it's probably around $20 million over the last 15 to 20 years that the Rudin family has donated to these universities because...
Oh, and you've helped to, with other people who have contributed as well.
Oh yeah, we've done that. But, you know, our buildings, we're in the real estate business, our buildings are only as good as the community around those buildings. And that's why we support the cultural institutions, we support the hospitals, we support the educational institutions. And what we think has happening, and I think Mayor Giuliani has recognized it, when he first came into office, the quality of life is the most important aspect to keep people in the city, make them come in the city, make them work in the city. If the quality of life is good and safe, then we have something going for us. And that's how we've always felt. The quality of life is the parks, is safety in the streets, is the museums, is the schools, and in the universities and the cultural institutions.
Of the 500,000, we have 200,000 students at the City University, so we're a very important part of that whole group. Now tell me about the Association for a Better New York. How many people
Well, we have
and what kinds of
We've broadened our
groups do you
base of operations. Today, we're unique, I think, in that we have a constituency of not only business and labor, business and real estate and banking, we have labor. And we have the civic groups, and then we also have a very strong group of political leaders that come to our meetings. We're nonpartisan, and we've had meetings with every president since Jerry Ford. We've had secretaries of state, we've had prime ministers, we've had every school chancellor, I guess, the city has had. We've had presidential candidates. And what we're trying to do at ABNY is to say to the mayor and the governor, look, we're an organization that wants to help make the city a better place to live and work. And if part of it is extending out and telling people throughout the country and the world what New York is really about, because there's a lot of bad perceptions about our city, Herman. I don't have to tell you that when Johnny Carson was on television in the 70s, he always made bad jokes about New York. And I think the city is perceived to be too big. The city is perceived to be too black or too Catholic or too white or too Jewish or too Hispanic. I mean, everybody all over the country has different points of view. And when you really get down to it and you find out what neighborhoods are made up of and how people operate, you're going to find that we are a middle American city, a city in this country. We're no different than most of the suburban areas of the rest of the country. And the cities, we went in '75, we had to get support, we had to show this other cities that if there was a problem in New York, they were going to get it eventually in those cities. That these problems were going to move around. And you know what? It's happened. And we've solved the problems better, I think, than most other cities in the country.
We'll be back after these announcements.
New York City needs you to take part in the 2000 census. Your participation means funding for New York City, money that pays for basic services for everyone like subways, hospitals, and schools. The Census Bureau never shares information on individuals with any government agency. Census information is completely confidential.
The census is a count of all the people in New York City. It's important that all its kids are counted. The census figures out where money goes for hospitals, schools, libraries, transportation to movies and baseball games, swimming pools, and playgrounds. So tell your parents. Census 2000.
Welcome back. My guest today is Lewis Rudin, a real estate owner and developer and philanthropist who is chairman of the Association for a Better New York. Lou, when I became chairman of the Board of Trustees of the City University, I became concerned that our graduates at the City University's 11 senior colleges and 6 community colleges and law school and medical school and graduate school were not getting the opportunity to meet with business leaders and to get their advice on A, what they should be learning at the City University, and B, how they could get a job, because after all, the purpose of going to a university is to get a job. So I went to speak together with Benno Schmidt, my vice chairman, to ABNY, and we were very well received, and you graciously offered to be chairman of a business leadership council. We've had meetings and we'll be having meetings, but tell us, what do you think is the current opinion among your members in the business community of the City University and its graduates?
Well, Herman, I think we have to do a little more education with the business community as to the importance and the strengths of City University. I think that you go back 30 or 40 years ago, City College had a fantastic reputation, and you look at the roster and alumni of it. And I think we have to now build on that so that the business community knows what City University and all of its junior and senior colleges have done. I'm convinced that when you leave a regular university, whether it's Columbia, NYU, or Yale, or Harvard, the first letter you get when you're is from the Alumni Association, asking for your support of your university. And I always said that ought to be the same mentality in the City University.
Good.
And that the graduates of whether it's Brandeis, Baruch, or City College, or Hunter, ought to have the same feeling of responsibility to those universities.
And we have a lot of very distinguished graduates.
And you do, and that's why my dad took a very strong position, and he was very helpful to Buell Gallagher, who was one of the older presidents. And so that's why I agreed to support your program, and I will, because I don't think it takes away from the private institutions. If you have a strong City University system here, you're going to be the vineyard for the people that are going to work in this city.
That's what we want to do. We want to make sure they get a job.
And I think in the kind of booming economy we've had, particularly in the change in New York City, the growth in New York City is not in the financial institutions. It's in this new media. It's in this internet. The whole city is growing. There was a story yesterday about Silicon Alley. Silicon Alley is not Silicon Valley, but Silicon Alley
Downtown.
is from 14th Street all the way, and may even be higher, all the way down to the tip of Manhattan. We have 5 buildings in Wall Street. We haven't rented to a financial institution in 5 or 6 years, Herman. We're renting to telecom company. We just signed a major lease with Quest. We're signing a lease with MCI. We have one building, 55 Broad Street, which was 100% empty for 6 years, is now filled with new media people, internet people, advanced technology people. It's a miracle, and all of this has created jobs. It means that for young people coming out of college, to get jobs, they've got to be computer literate.
Are your families working with Borough Manhattan Community College?
Absolutely.
Right? Tell us about that one.
Yeah. Well, and my son is doing that, and we have classes. We have a floor in our building at 55 Broad Street, which my son Bill has called the sandbox. And when you think of sandboxes when we were kids, but here, this is a 25,000 square foot floor. It's classrooms, it's meeting facilities, it's a video conference room we can talk to people all over the world. And so we've worked out an arrangement with Manhattan Community College. We have meetings every day with different universities. 2 or 3 universities have office space in the building. And in fact, in one of our other buildings, we were talking to a university to build their own facility on the ground floor and basement as a teaching and auxiliary facility for the university, so that they're in the Wall Street area, in Silicon Alley, and they're able to attract young people to learn there, and then they'll get jobs.
Well, that's very important because, as you point out, these are the jobs of the future, and students who may be watching should consider joining that program at Borough Manhattan Community College.
There was a book I just read, Herman, called The New Thing. It's about a guy named Jim Clark who created Netscape, and his latest creation is a company called Healthion, which is going to, I guess, revolutionize the healthcare institutions. And I'm really not computer literate. I can't work a computer because I have bad eyes and I can't watch the thing. But reading this book, actually listening to it on tape, all of a sudden I got an insight of what is going on in the minds of young people today. I see my grandchildren working a computer, and that's what's going on. If we can get more and more people, young people, that will focus in on becoming computer literate. In fact, part of College Town, Herman, we have two College Town facilities. One, the State of New York Department of Labor on 54th Street building, and one in Brooklyn. And any high school student, anybody can go to those facilities and they can say they want to study architecture. And they go to a computer and they punch up architecture, and out comes the 20 different institutions, private or public, that they could study architecture. And then they go and get a tape and go sit in front of a television screen, and they can see what is going on at Pratt Institute or Columbia School of Engineering or NYU, whatever the school it is, or any of the city universities. And then they don't have to move. They get the whole 1 hour or whatever it is, visual and audio presentation of that school. It's unbelievable. And then also, they can get if they want to look for a job in architecture, they could punch it in on the computer.
Well, that's where you can be helpful, because in the Business Leadership Council, which you have established, you have representatives of top businessmen from all over the city, different fields and professions. And what I think would be the most useful contribution you can make is to reassure our students that they should stay in college and graduate, because I find we have a very high dropout rate.
Yeah.
And a lot of that happens because students have to have responsibilities.
They're
older,
impatient.
they're impatient. But if they felt that there would be a real opportunity to get a job, I believe they would stay. And they need that reassurance from the business community.
Well, I'm a trustee of NYU, and one of the things that Jay Oliva and John Bradamus before him have always talked about was New York provides an education, and it also provides an opportunity for the future. And they don't get that in a college campus up in the boondocks. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
It's right here for them. If they're in advertising, they can get an apprenticeship in an advertising firm. If it's in architecture, engineering, or communications, or whatever it is, New York is the place. Banking, it's available to them. And if we provide the access to getting jobs, which it's easy enough to do. I told you that right now, they're doing it right now in these two facilities. New York is a very strong place for young people.
Well, that's what we need to do, which we haven't done at the City University. I know it's done in other places, but we haven't really pushed that. And I think that Matt Goldstein, the new chancellor, and I are committed, with your help, to making sure that in every aspect of New York business, that our graduates will be able to get an opportunity.
Well, let's have a group go to those two facilities and see what's offered to them in the area of jobs. It's there. All they have to do is use those facilities. Doesn't cost a nickel. And it's the Department of Labor, so they're providing jobs, but our facility is specifically for the college kids.
Where do you think, aside from computer literacy, are going to be the opportunities for employment in the next 10 years in New York City?
Well, I said that we've seen a tremendous growth in this new media, communications industries. New York has really become the headquarters of the major communications and publishing organizations. When you have Time Warner that's merged with AOL, you have Bertelsmann, and you have Condé Nast, all basically concentrating on the west side, Times Square up to Columbus Circle. Tremendous. The advertising, there's a revolution in the advertising world, Herman, that I can't even put my finger on, because we have some advertising firms, and my son is the consultant for Young and Rubicam. the explosion that's happening there, because advertising is communication, you know. So they're marketing. Look what's going on in the marketing world and merchandising and department stores. People are not going to go to stores anymore. They're going to go through their computer and shop. So that's an area of, I think, growing opportunities for people in the job market.
Unfortunately, we have to stop, but appreciate your support, and we'll be back again.
Well, thank you, Herman, for inviting me, and I'm delighted, and I offer all of our services to you and your people, and to the students to take advantage of them.
You can reach us by email at our website, www.cunytv.cuny.edu, or write to us at CUNY TV, 365 Fifth Avenue, New York, New York, 10016. We look forward to hearing from you.